All right.
All right.
Without further ado, we'll go ahead and present our speaker. We're very excited, Sharon, to have you here today. So, Sharon Ilan is the co founder and CEO of Alora. An AI company built for supply chain operations. So she has over 20 years of experience in supply chain and operations. So she started with global and she is built her career with global operations at Better Place, and then moved into a global rollout at GreenRoad, serving like thousands of customers. So the path shape Alora's core belief. So it's about the hard part of AI in supply chain isn't the model, it's the people. And we're going to hear a lot more throughout the presentation today. So she has a lot of experience with complex manufacturing, managing thousands of like BOM lines, and she learned also a lot about the making AI adoption real, practical, field tested, and honest. So, without further ado, Sharon Ilan, thank you for being with us today, and let's go ahead and start our presentation.
So thank you for having me. Thank you, Joanna, for the introduction. Should I share my screen?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm sending a request. Did you got my request to share? Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, great. Okay, can you see my screen?
We can. And as questions populate in the field, would you like to take those questions throughout the presentation, or would you prefer to wait until the end of your presentation?
You can ask freely during the presentation. It's an open discussion. And
Okay,
if anyone want to ask, that's okay for me. Feel
thank you.
free. So basically, everyone, nice meeting you. It's a pleasure to be here. I wanted to share from my experience 3 meters about AI that we saw during the period that we have been working with supply chain and AI and what we saw in the field. Just a second. My screen is stuck. Just a second. Sorry. I don't know why it's got stuck. I'll share it again. Sorry, guys.
No, I think that makes everybody feel better that it doesn't just happen to us.
No, I don't know why the screen stopped like reacting. Yeah, sorry. Let's see again. Is it now been shown? I don't know why, but my page are not reacting. Oh,
Yes.
okay. We are on. Okay. So sorry, guys. So basically, before we get into it, just a bit about ourselves, about Alora. What's important to know that we are supply chain people who build AI and not vice versa, which is important, I think, in the story. As already present, I have 20 years of experience in supply chain. I was in a company in medical device from founding team to IPO. In GreenRoad, a global company with thousands of customers, and in Better Place, an EV infrastructure of battery switch station. It's a very different industry, 3 different industry. But my role, my position was always same thing about not stopping the production line, making sure that we are committed to the customer demand. And the fear was around, and I guess you're all supply chain people, you can relate to that. It's the fear of missing that one single part will not get to the production line and will miss a very important customer shipment. And this is the vision of Alora. It's not just about automation of procedure. It's also about reducing that fear and making sure that supply chain people can commit to this kind of targets. The three myths that holding companies back, as we learned, is, and we go over every one of them into details. The first one is, first, let's fix the data. The second one is, let's pick the biggest, most ambitious project. And the third one is, AI is an IT project. And I will explain one by one and what we think that needs to be done. So first, we'll fix the data, then we'll bring in AI. I heard it many times during the 2 years, 1.5 years that we are working with company. And I guess you also heard it. And I can relate to that because we have scars from integration of data, from implementation of software. We've done during the last years lots of cleaning data. So I can understand the instinct about that, and I'm hearing company do that. But what AI we can do is to fix the data while you move. It's like, let's tidy the house. The cleaner comes tomorrow. Tomorrow never comes. And if you wait and while you clean the data, you know how it goes with supply chain. There's thousands of automation, of thousands of action that happens in parallel that is getting the data messy. So the day of the data getting clean will never come. So what we actually do is we automated the real work on the data exactly as it is, but you need to define and to produce two output. First is the automation. It's let's say the buyer stop chasing emails, but also to define what is the data, the output from that, and to define from the first minute where it will be in the ERP, where it will be in the master data or in your bill of material. So you can gain two output, and the clean and of the data is by product. This is why we say start. Don't wait for the data to be clean. Second one, it's let's pick the biggest, most ambitious project. And I can understand why companies think that way, because if you already invest in AI, so the idea is let's go big, let's do a project, but this can get company to prolong project for 18 months and a lot of cost of money that not always will bring the trust in the company. So we don't think that you don't need to plan the platform, to plan where you want to get. We just think that you need to start by a focus project and then broad, and it's a different way of thinking. And I will give an example. Let's say that you start with a question of the buyer's inbox of what do I do with the email. That's a data layer around the procurement automation. Once you gain that automation and the trust in the company, add another layer. Add a question like which part put order at risk. It's a data around bomb intelligence, and it's a different question that you can resolve for the operation. And then once you get that, you can go on top of that for a leadership question that costs a lot of money of how much can we commit to a customer. So the same data, the same platform, but different question. It's starting in a focus in a one place, but plan how you're going to grow and from the day one. That's a different approach than from the beginning, working with multiplied teams around different work stream. You need to be focused. You need to show quick ROI in the company, trust, and build layers by layers. The third one is AI in the supply chain is an IT project. And what we saw that there's different approach around it, who you make in charge in the company. What's important to understand that it's not just technology, it's an operation, the AI. And if you choose the supply chain as an owner, he knows to define from day one the clear ROI. And from that direction, it's very clear how you're going to enter the AI to the company. So we think that's the best solution. IT, of course, is essential, and it's a partner for this process because it's around secure, sensitive data. So of course, it's part of the process, but they don't need to lead. They need to be alongside the supply chain. Other option, and it's also a good option, it's innovation manager, transformation lead. We see companies doing that. There's an advantage of looking, not just on the supply chain, but on the sales and other section. But we still believe that this person needs to choose someone from the supply chain alongside of him, the IT, but also the supply chain, because they will know to define the right process. They will know to define the ROI, and it's important position and process. And the other option that we see that some companies give it to the IT. And again, IT is very essential for this process. They are the one that is taking care of the data, which is very sensitive, but they should not lead it because again, it's not technology. It's really about process, about operation. So I just mapped 3 different problems, myths that we saw. And now I want to take it to how we think you need to do it, how we do it, and what we see is working. So what we do as companies is we do 5 steps of listen, map, define, decide, and build. The listen is about a session that we do with every stakeholders, and we hear their needs, their pain in their own word. From that, as a professional, we map it. We map the data, the system, the owner. We define the automation that needs to be done, which system we touch. We define which one is the leading of the process, but which one is, needs to know about this kind of information or to act after that. That's an important interaction that we define. And when we define, we map kind of a visual sketch of the system. Again, taking back to plan big, we from the beginning define what we want to get in the end, how things are interaction. But again, as I said before, we start focus, but we do define the total sketch of the system. And then we do mutual work on the decision. We believe that we need to give score with the parameter that is important together. It could be parameters around the ROI that we believe that we will get, around the system that we are touching, how much around the data we're going to clean it, all kind of parameters that we decide together. And so once we decide where to start, we start building. It's a joint development. It's a working system. It's not just a product. And that's a different approach that people need to understand. And how we see it, it's that AI needs to be built in supply chain in maturing layers. The first layer is tactical. It's automate all of the process that around the supply chain. It could be warehouse, it could be logistic, shipment, RFQ, procurement. There's a lot of things to automate. But then you need to go to an upper layer of exception management, which surface what is need to be as an exception. It could be an increase in pricing. It could be an error in the documentation, different lead time that you need to define and needs to be raised. From there is the master data hills. By product needs to be healed. You need to decide if there's an exception of some mismatch in your data, how you're going to store it, which one is going to be updated in your data. Once you have all of these layers, it's very natural to go to the strategic in a very natural way of doing things as maybe we need to replace the supplier, maybe we need to add another source, which part is the most risky one, because we have the basic of the other layers resolve. And this is how we believe that we need to define things. Now, after I explain how we believe things needs to be defined and work with companies, I will give an example from the field. We have been working with company, global high-tech equipment manufacturer, public company, have many sites around the world. We map there a lot of work stream, bill of material, very complicated one, lots of SKU. And in the end, something that is not surprising, I guess, to none of you is that the integration layer is the email, not the ERP. So the exception layer that I was talking about is in the emails, and it's sometimes missed to be documented in the right place. What we did with them is, as we expand, is first listen. We had 8 sessions with 14 stakeholders and 7 work streams. What is working there good is that we have the VP supply chain opening the door. And as I said, that's very helpful when the VP supply chain from the top is pushing this kind of a project. We listen who owns the work today, where does the pain sit, which system touch it, where that is connected. And by doing that, we saw that there is a very in the buyers, many hours spent on chasing exceptions that result in for a lot of mismatch and blocking invoice. And in the end, what is most painful, that the master data drifts and it makes a lot of problems around the companies. And what we did for them is mapping how we see the things. When we heard all the conversation around all the work stream, it all went to what needs to automate it, but also around the PIR, what they call the procurement information records and the bill of material. And it's an interaction between different work stream that in each of them, there's a data, not just automation, that is being affected. And it needs to be defined, who needs to know, who needs to act. And what was clear for us, if whatever to choose, which work stream we choose, we won't just do the automation. We will also touch the data and how it's been recorded, because that will make ease on the other work stream, because it's all related in the end. Just an example, a flow of things. There's a trigger, a supplier email saying that next quarter he will raise the price by 7%. Usually a data path is that you read it, you compare it to the contract or to the PO or the other document. If you detect mismatch, in this example, you have this mismatch between the contract of 5%, you raise the exception. And here needs to be still human in the loop to approve, to modify, to decide if he wants to reject it. And once the decision is made, you need to update it and to learn a learning loop. So that's how we see things needs to be from day one mapped. Just an example to understand. And in the end, we score, as I said, every work stream. We choose one focus by the scoring that we decide. We decided here to be focused on one team, not to go around different teams. There's something about centric in one team, making one successful project, gaining the trust. In this case, it's procurement. And procurement and also the data around it that is being affected in all of this work. And from day one, already define what go next after procurement, how we're going to expand to show what's the potential of a platform, not just one work stream working by itself. In the end, you want to see how things are interaction. This is why from the beginning, we're doing it in every work stream, defining as I showed before. What was also important here, as I said, IT is essential. You have to have a secure solution. It's a very data sensitive. You all know that. But here, what we decided is it's in order to show trust in the company is to start from emails and after to add the layer of the ERP in order to have, a quicker enter. And we decided that together that will be our approach. And this is just numbers. It's not real numbers, but it's just to show you one of the things that we believe that is important is, and some companies needs help, is to define the ROI, there's management, there's a board sometimes that needs to approve AI. As users, you need to define, because it's important to know from day one, what's the ROI of this project, and you need to quantify it a bit. And you need to decide on the measurement over time to see from the beginning that you have the data to see over period that things are, around the plan. So if I sum up what I just say in three things to take home, is first, start dirty. Don't wait. The data will never heals. You know that. You've been in the industry for many years. But it's important from day one to define what you do with the data. Once you automate something, you also decide what you do with the data. That is what we believe is important. Start small, one team, one pain, but from day one, decide how you want to expand. There is a very advantage in the same platform. And we believe you need to own it from the field. To have it operation lead, it's not about just technology. The successful here is around people from the field leading it. We think it's also giving the adoption in the company more trust. And I think, supply chain people needs to lead it and needs to learn about it and needs to push it to own it. That's it, guys. And happy to answer question. Happy to connect after this. If you want, there is my contact here. Feel free to email me, ask questions. And also, I'm open now to answer any question you have or raise any issues.
Thank
Sharon,
you,
Hi, Sharon.
Sharon.
I have a,
Oh,
oh,
No, go ahead.
go ahead, Derek.
No, you go. You go.
Okay.
a
No,
question.
I was gonna say, Sharon, thank you so much for the presentation. I have a question. So, where do you see AI having the greatest impact on supply chains over the next 5 years?
Oh, terrific question. I think it takes time more than people, there's an expectation that you put, an agent and everything is starting working. And I think what we will see in layers is in the beginning, the automation of simple tasks and sorting the data. And it's like I show in the layers. That's what I believe, because you cannot jump ahead to strategic so quickly, I think. And our belief is first to have the automation and the data, but build from there, and then we will see that kind of impact. And once company will have more, the agent inside together with the people, we will see effect of, a different work of the tactical and the data. And I think it will take time. And then we can jump more to the strategic solution. We will see solution on the strategic. We will give. Also, Alora gives, but the decision layer is something that is more complicated. People like us is very important in this kind of a role, together with the agent, working aside the agents. And it's very different between the sectors also, I believe. I'm coming from a field that is complex manufacturing. There's lots of data. There's from the bill of material, and I think it's very complicated there to sort the first layer of the data and the automation. So I think we will invest the next 5 years around that, and then have the next innovation. But I believe that from day one, you can see part of the innovation of the strategic if you work well.
That's good. Thank you.
So I think we have a question from John. Let's take John's questions first, and then we can come back to mine and Dolores after that. So the question is, what are your thoughts with governance? How high up the organization does one go with pilots or an AI strategy, whether it be agentic or generative? John agrees that the business needs to own the pilot, but not all ideas generate the same ROI, business value, or connect to the business strategy. So I think it goes back to that ownership you mentioned, frontline in the supply chain. Now, how far up within the business does it need to go?
So what was basically the question around the government? I'm not sure I understand the question.
John, do you want to come off? Can you come off mute to ask
Sorry.
to add a bit more color to it?
Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can, John. Go ahead.
Yeah, good afternoon. I enjoyed this presentation, so thank you for that. I'm just thinking about who makes the decisions, right? And you're based on your experience working with clients and as a starting point or just your general thoughts, where that decision rights lays within the organization, right? I mean, fully
Okay.
agree ownership of the business, and when I say the business, the context of this discussion is supply chain. Yet there has to be somebody that's
Okay. Yeah.
ensuring that the teams are working on the right things, that IT isn't being overwhelmed with
Yeah.
requests
Yeah.
for API integrations, with either off-the-shelf modeling, as another example. When I say governance, those are some of the things that I'm thinking about.
Okay, good question. So basically, we are in the middle of transformation of AI, and each company takes it in a different approach. And I see that, as I said also in the presentation, that the best scenario is the VP supply chain. Not always it happens, and it's part of taking a role. It's like going into the office and decide that you're taking another role and you're learning a new subject around, vendors and who are out there, but also taking an ownership of integration inside the company. Because as you mentioned, there's a lot of integration here around taking the IT, and approaching them and approval of the IT. And companies needs to help also we see ourselves also helping there because we need, there's infosec questionnaire that you need to follow and all kind of things. And you need also to ease the adoption of the IT by, not from day one, integrate everything. That's scary. So there's the IT and there's the board sometimes. And there's board of, in the companies that are saying, okay, coming from the top, we want AI. That's, one approach that's saying from the top. Taking it from the top is not saying that the bottom, you need to work also from, it's not only just that the board say we want next year AI and we put a budget. You need to work from the bottom, because if the people, you need also to get them on board, to get them on trust, because we work with companies and we say it's not about putting a product. It's about letting the people that are working daily with the agents, making them feel comfortable, making them feel, relief and trust, because they are the one for now working with this kind of a data. So it's making them, but from them, you need also to show the management from the day one how they're going to get the value. So there's a lot of interaction here. Company needs to help. Companies of AI needs to plan in that way of, getting, when you enter to company, to get to understand all the stakeholders. And for you guys, I think the best, from what I saw, that you're the lead. Maybe you need another person for that, but you will need to lead it because in the end, you will need to define, you know the best about your process, about where's the pain, where to start from. It's yours. So it's not a magic that, but and in saying that, there's magic that is happening by entering an eye because there's the ability to do stuff that, for years we've waited not to change the way we work, but to get a relief, and it can happen. Just like I explained, don't start so big. Start making the trust, showing the management how they get what they need, showing the IT. There's a, and companies also need to help around that. It's not a out of the shelf product. It's a process. But saying that, there is successful around it. I'm just, showing the challenges, but I'm seeing, teams, satisfied and getting a relief and surprise and getting their tactical work being changed. So it's amazing saying that.
If I could add to that, Sharon, I'd love to get your thoughts on this as well. I think to your question, John, when you're going down the AI journey, you're gonna have a lot of trade-offs and choices that you have to make, right? And Sharon just touched on just the small segment of from info security to you touched on IT. What do you invest in? So I think that's where you have to be able. Your governance question is a really interesting one because you have to be able to balance that top-down vision, right? That helps inform those choices that you need. So you absolutely need senior executive sponsorship, whether that's the CEO or the board, depending on the size of the organization, because you're going to have to make those choices. But that has to be balanced with the bottom-up federated view of, okay, now what are the problems we need to work on, right? So you really need to have a governance structure that enables you to make decisions on, okay, what is important, and then get the support to go make those choices, right? So not just talk about we want APIs. Okay, what APIs are we going to put in, right? What tools and systems we're actually going to invest in? So I think that's where you really have to strike a balance. I mean, that's what I see, and I think a lot of organizations are still grappling with how do they do that top down, bottom up, and actually meet in the middle where it makes
Yeah,
sense.
agree.
Yeah. So I think that's a really good feed into Dolores's question. Dolores, you want to come on, you want to ask that, or you want me to just read it on out of the chat?
Yeah, no, I'm curious about measuring the ROI because I love the fact that you said start down and dirty with the data because uh, boy, are we guilty of just saying no, we don't want to take on any project, regardless if it's AI or not, because um, it exposes it instead of viewing it as an opportunity to welcome that exposure, because that's how change is made, right? Um,
That.
but when I have internal customers say, "Oh, can AI do this? Can AI do that?" One of the things that's challenging is putting together an ROI. So
Yeah.
what do you see? Because from where I'm at in my role currently, these requests are more in their infancy stages. Do you have a set timeline? Do you have a recommendation? Is it case by case?
It's case by case. And I have to say, companies are not so good to get the data around ROI. It's something that needs to guide them. And it's not so accurate. It's about you need to try to get some quantification. It's
Mm-hmm.
some work that needs to be done with companies that I see, but you need to think, you need to work together to define it. We know also from our side what we want to gain. Okay, we know that we want to gain, and we see from companies what is happening, like the percentage that is saving, the hours that is being saved. But there is
Mm-hmm.
kind of things that needs to become from the companies. Like, okay, let's take the company that I was discussing. I don't know that they said, when we define everything, there was a discussion about numbers of block invoice that
Mm-hmm.
could, in the end, um, you know, this kind of blocked invoice, sometimes it makes a stop in production line, can cause. which is something that I cannot quantify. I'm not in that kind of
Right.
company to say this kind of data. So it's a mutual work. I can bring what I see and what I know that Alora will save, but there are things inside the companies that only the company knows to quantify it. I can ask questions. I can ask the power meters that needs to, but it's a joint between the AI companies and specific the company that is been, that you are working with. And
Okay.
it cannot never be accurate, but at least you know what you are aiming to have and to stop during the project and to see it. For sure, it's gonna save time. For sure, it's gonna be, around productivity, which is hard to measure,
Hmm.
but also data. Okay, we believe that you need to sort the data, as I said, in parallel. So if you decided that, you can define of, you know, capture when you start a project. Let's say how the bill of material is looked in the beginning and how does it looks in the end of the project. So there's all kind of things that you can measurement and together to define it and to quantify it, that won't be, just words.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
I think the question I was going to ask Sharon earlier was around that data journey, right? So I mean, a lot of us in supply chain we've grown up with the mantra of garbage in, garbage out. So it's hard to trust the idea that yes, we can progressively clean this out versus wanting to have my data lake pristine before I start anything. So could you share a bit more about how do you help the organizations go down that journey of yes, your data is not where you want it to be today. Now, yes, we can work through it. So how do you help them progressively believe
Yeah.
they can do that?
So I have to say there are companies that, they're still in this kind of position and I cannot process, make them change their mind. But
Right.
companies that are open, and I have many of this kind of approach. First, I ask question about, the bill of material status, the master data, how many data there are on a daily basic updated, who is in charge of that? Usually I ask, and a lot of companies, it's like very split it between people.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing. That the other is that from day one we want to map the automation, but also as we explained the exception layer and where it's going to be stored. When we, let's say, do automation about procurement, and inside the inbox there is an exception layer of price increase, of different lead time, of measurement of supplier behavior that cannot be measured in the ERP. That's making the data more accurate
Mhm.
inside of the company versus what there is currently. Asking the question, how do you do it currently? How do
Right.
you make sure that the lead time is the accurate one? And let me show how we can do it. How, when there is an increase in pricing, how fast someone knows to calculate the pricing inside a current company to the sales. This is
Yeah.
kind of, just a thought that you give to the company and then explaining, listen, you're doing things faster, more automating, and you have another agent that is looking on that kind of a data and will enter it by your approval to the master data.
Yeah.
Can you do it by yourself? Because most company are doesn't have this kind of people around making sure and are not, because it's in the emails. Sometimes you miss this kind of information. Okay, so it's around also HS code. People a lot of have different with HS codes and changes that happening all the time. It's
Right.
very hard to track it. So imagine you have someone that is in charge of that in your inbox
Hmm.
with your approval.
Hmm.
And this is the way we want to, people to think about it,
Right.
and understanding to compare to the current stage versus what we can get.
Right. And I guess that kind of goes back to the comment you're making earlier about that ROI, that it's sort of you're following these breadcrumbs that you're just showing progressively more and more examples of, okay, here's where there's value. And now that sort of gives you license for the next step to continue expanding how
Yeah,
you continue cleaning out your data and, what the AI opportunities that now opens up for you.
Yeah, I
yeah,
really enjoyed the piece of just starting small because I do believe that uh, a lot of times the requests are too massive, and then that's where frustration and failure come.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, we are AI is very, we are all like very, it's excited. Okay,
Mhm.
it's innovation. It's excited. You want to start big. Companies from the top want to say, let's, change everything. But you want to also, as I said, from the layers, from the bottom, gain them trust.
Yeah.
Start focus with one team, show that there is a project in the company that is a successful one in a very, not 18 months, but just few months. And from that, go and grow. I think it's more mature, it's more responsible, and it's an adaptation. So, one team will see, they got this kind of agent, why one I? And, I was just in a customer and someone from other team enter and this show I was there and they were asking for them. It's kind of game, if one team, one focus, one successful in this company, others will follow. That's how I see it.
If I play devil's advocate that way, you don't want to start too small, right? It needs to be
No,
impactful. Otherwise, you end up with a lot of
that's
small
that's
pilots that don't get the attention and
no,
perhaps
that's why
can't
you need
scale.
to map the system. And I think it's not small if you connect it to the data.
Right.
That's how I see it.
Yeah.
And if we start from every work stream, we think about it, the data that is around there, it's very powerful. It can connect it to other people, and it's not so small as you
Right.
start from that. That's
Right.
my belief.
Right. So John has a couple of John, do you want to come? Are you okay coming off mute, making the points you have in the chat?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Sorry, I keep calling you out onto the screen.
No, that's okay. I want to give other people the opportunity here as well. I just really found your question, Derek, very insightful because I know there's a great debate within the supply chain community as a whole about AI and with clean versus dirty data. As a planning leader, I am admittedly in the clean data camp because I've seen what bad data does when it comes to
Yeah,
advanced planning systems, the S&OP process, and especially when we think about scenario optimization or even long-term planning and integration with finances, for example. But this discussion really and also the starting small really resonated with me from the standpoint that it comes down to the use case and the problem to solve, and that there are use cases to help clean the data that I think Sharon indirectly or directly spoke to get the data clean so then you can take that next logical step. So, in summary, it's just start small and work your way up. It was my thinking there. And my final add is that not all projects are going to work. I think it was Dolores who mentioned about the ROI, which is another question that I think about and struggle with. But be okay with, hey, some pilots, they're just not going to get the bang for the buck or they're going to go kaput or whatever. And that's okay. And that the organization learning and saying, okay, well, let's just move on is the other mindset that as leaders we have to support and encourage.
I think, the idea is also to have motivation with your team because when something is not working well, that they want, because we are all, scars with trying to enter more systems. So whatever system you enter, it's not, not to burden the people, to be beside them and you need to get them on board. So you need to handle it all the time. And if there is a failure, it's also as a management to, to show them, how next time or, to bring them in the process from the beginning also, because, people are afraid that I will replace them. I don't think it's there. There will be tasks that, definitely gonna be changed. That all of the role and position are gonna be changed. But people are gonna start working in a different way with an AI. I think given the people, involving them in the way why we choose this company. And I see also in our process of mapping and listen to people, and even giving them the ability to say what is their problems, it's making them adaptation to the process. So I think that's also important to gain them into it.
Yeah. Any other questions? All right.
All right. Well, I think that's all the time that we have.
Thank you. It was very, good questions. I like the discussion.